tons of hard rock tunnels under the river. It went through mountains, it went underneath streams. But the key was that it was all the water that went through the Catskill Aqueduct to the city was conveyed by gravity. It did not require pumping. It was a really amazing engineering feat, which was really compared at that time to another amazing engineering feat, which was the Panama Canal, the construction of the Panama Canal, which was being built about the same time.
The bushwhacks were some of the worst days I've ever had in the mountains, or life, really.
Whereas Panther Mountain is totally opposite. It's a mountain on top of a crater.
I think the weather challenges on this incident were particularly difficult.
It was really the development of New York State. Catskills were responsible.
Now you're listening to Inside the Line, the Catskill Mountains podcast.
Felt like I was hogging the mic for that one.
No.
All right. So, Tad, what was the last live concert you've been to?
The last live? Okay. I have an answer for this. The elder of the two of us, my last concert was Madison Square Garden 2016 with my daughter. We saw the Cure.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, it was a fabulous show. Now, before that, I won't go into the one before that, but yeah, it was a fabulous show. I hadn't seen the Cure since, 40-some years.
Show me. Oh God,
yeah,
that's
right?
so nice.
It's great stuff.
I could imagine that. Tomorrow, Jessica and I will be seeing Sum 41. So I don't know if you.
I have no idea who they are.
Oh my God,
are they like one of these teen boy bands? Is that what you're into?
Definitely, New Kids on the Block type.
Excellent.
This is how we do it. John, what is his name? But they're punk. They're punk rock.
Okay.
Sum 41 was like the Blink 182, but a little bit on the harder edge. And they're doing their last tour. I say that with quotations because everybody says that, and then they freaking do like 8 more. But we're going to see that, so we're like all preparing for that and everything. So
are tomorrow when you're at the big event, are you going to try to get backstage by telling everybody that you have a podcast and you want to interview the band?
They already know.
Oh, okay. You should.
They already invited me. They invited me to play on stage.
Yeah. Oh, nice, sweet.
I'm the introducer. I'm just like, hey, everyone.
Yeah, you're like the guest. What do you play? The guitar? Are you a guitarist?
I am. I'm electric guitar, actually.
So you're going to show up with your guitar. You're going to hop on stage. You ever see those YouTube videos where like some random person from the audience gets on stage with the band and just rips, away?
Yes, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, there's some great YouTube videos of guys, where one of them that I saw was a woman getting up on stage and just really just lighting it up.
I'm jealous as heck. This year has been like the past couple of years. I don't know if I talked about this with you or with someone else before you came on, but it was like I've noticed a lot of musicians passing away, and whether it's from, unfortunately, suicide, they have the burden of live concerts. They have to be on the road all the time, or whether, substance abuse, or it's just, a crazy problem of a heart attack. But my favorite musicians, I see them for the last time, and then, they're on tour, and then all of a sudden the tour gets canceled because someone passed away. And then I'm like, oh, I never got to see them again. So I'm kind of like in that stage of like, I need to see these bands before something bad happens. Is that bad? Is that bad to think?
Well, to a certain extent, you should live life that way. You should try to do now or in the near term that which you consider worthwhile and that you want to see, do, or hear, experience during your lifetime? Because eventually you're going to wake up, you're going to be an old guy like me, and you're going to say, what did I do the last 40 years of my life? This is where, if you want to have the discussion on the podcast, we can talk about how I tried to convince you to quit your job, sell everything, and take a year, 2 or 3 off and just travel.
I'm 40 years old. I can't do that crap right now. I'm not 20.
It doesn't matter. My daughter this Sunday is leaving for a cross-country car packing, rock climbing excursion that's going to last months, not just months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go. What details? Like, what is she doing?
Oh, who knows? It's, a lot of like ad-libbing and just freestyle. She's got some plans. The most important thing is she doesn't have to have an end date or a return date. She just is going to travel as long as she feels the need to travel and have a good time. And that's part of the fun of being in your 20s, having no debt, little to no responsibility. You get out there, you see the world. I encourage it.
Yeah.
And we can talk. I mean, I can talk to anybody about that. I think that it's great that if you were able to, and we should just make it a whole thing in our society where, we take time off for Thanksgiving, we take time off for Christmas. There's this fuzzy retirement age of 65. But why don't we say that when you turn 40, we get to take 2 years off? Take 2 years off. All of your mortgage payments, your other debt, all of that is frozen. You get to park your life for a year or two and just travel, enjoy life, enjoy the world. And then you come back to it when you're 42, 43 years old.
Right. That sounds absolutely phenomenal.
So we're going to rewrite the whole social order tonight on tonight's podcast. I'm getting out a blank sheet of paper, a pen. I'm going to start down the new rules. Age 40.
Yeah, right.
Quit job. Okay. I know you want to move the ball down the field, Stosh.
No, not at all. So, like, is she doing the van life and stuff like that? Like,
well, she's got a Subaru. Her father built a sleep platform in it for her on Sunday, so she has room to store stuff underneath. She's got a car carrier on top. It's probably has a design capacity of carrying, the whole vehicle came out of the factory, able to carry like 10 cubic feet of gear. And we've doubled that capacity. But I'll say this is not her first time going cross country in this car. She's done many trips. She's probably seen more national parks by the age of 24 than you or I have put together.
So is she doing this solo?
Yes and no. She's got plans to hook up with people, but she is in the main going to be solo, hanging out, having a good time. Yeah.
Does she have a GPS that you can?
No, nobody in our family uses GPS. We just have this.
Garmin?
We have this innate. No, we have this innate sense of direction. True north. I don't even use a compass when I hike. She doesn't use any GPS in the car.
Oh wow! Oh,
I'm just bullshitting, Stosh.
Okay, I was like, wait a minute.
Of course, she has GPS. Her dad wouldn't let her leave home without it.
This is she's a hardcore rock climber. That's this little.
Yeah.
Good for her. Tell her if she ever listens to the show, tell her, you know what? I congratulate her on doing this, and hopefully she's successful and having fun.
I appreciate that. So just 2 notes before we move on. Number 1, I'm trying to convince her to put a sticker on her cargo carrier from the podcast. Number 1.
Why not?
Yeah. So we know.
He hasn't done that already?
Yeah, I know. I should get the shame drum out for this. And then the second thing is, if we ever have a free night in the coming months, we'll try to arrange to get her on. She can give us like a roadside update on where she is.
Absolutely.
How many flat tires she's had and whether or not she's having fun or not.
How many, people she's encountered and stuff. I'm curious of seeing her route. Did she do a pre-planned route and stuff?
There's no, weather conditions and rendezvousing with people at different times. Yeah.
Unbelievable that you can have that sort of thought. Like, thinking about that right now, I'm just like, I need to have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And if it's not planned, nope.
Yeah. All I know is it's crazy. Is that wouldn't you love to be 24 years old and setting off for the next 12 to 14 weeks, backpacking, car camping, rock climbing, and then she's looking this winter. She's looking to get a job in some ski town out west as a ski instructor. So all the best to her.
Yeah, definitely. So, you're talking about being a ski instructor out west, and they have still had winter. They still have winter going on. And in the Inyo County Search and Rescue team that I follow a lot, because of course they're always doing stuff in the high Sierra Nevadas, they had at May 2nd had a winter storm warning. And it's the first series of storms that is going to happen from May 4th to May 5th. 35 to 45 mile per hour summit winds in the high Sierra Nevadas, and also a snowfall of 8 to 16 inches daily. So,
wow.
Yeah, and this is, of course, in the high Sierra Nevadas, of course, includes Mount Whitney. Mount Whitney is the highest mountain in the contiguous United States area. So, once again, people think that, we're hitting 70, 80 degrees today here, but not over there in the high Sierra Nevadas, where it's hitting -9 and 35 mile per hour winds and 5 to 6 inches of snow every freaking 6 hours. So crazy stuff. It's not over yet.
So could you imagine that if you sometime a few days ago set out in your car and an airplane to travel out there, let's say you were planning on climbing Mount Whitney and you were expecting daytime temperatures in the 50s, so you didn't bring gear to go out in really cold weather. Then you get out there and you realize that this is like full on winter conditions. Quite a bummer.
Yeah. And, and you wonder if you bail. And by the way, that's a nice pen you got there. Oh, okay. I thought you had yours. I'm sorry. Distracted. Once again, there goes. Yeah. Do we have, is it a tobacco free thing?
Just so, but also the listeners know Stosh and I are engaged in pen envy right now. So while you're driving down the road wondering what the F is going on, he's holding up his pen. I'm holding up mine. Maybe he'll just edit all of this out. I'm
so sorry. Once again, back and forth. So my cool thing is, we'll talk about this later, but I met a guy who, on Drybuck Ridge today, which I had no thought of anybody visiting Packatack in the area. I met a guy that summited Mount Whitney, and he wants to do it in the winter time. And this guy had no absolute clue how to do the winter. I'm going to edit that out because he's going to listen to this. So I had a chat with a guy that summited Mount Whitney that is a photographer and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool to talk with him about it. So hopefully he's ready for the winter out there, because it is a whole nother story, especially on Mount Whitney, especially with, I'm sorry to say, the deaths that they had this year. So it's pretty crazy. So Tad, a question that I have been brought to my attention, and so, we had, of course, the recent storms. Have you heard about the Panther Mountain Trailhead Register got totally crushed by a fallen tree?
I saw that.
So a lot of people are wondering about digital trailhead registers, maybe tap in your Bluetooth, sign in. I mean, you would need signal, maybe not, but you would need battery, you need power, but they could probably tap in at the exact time you entered the trailhead, entered that time, and then, kind of determine your route as of when they, you needed something, you need a rescue or something like that. But, that would be a little difficult. Of course, with what we have, the technology is improving, but today, sometimes I find trailhead registers are absolutely full and you can't write in anything anyway. And I found this at Panther, the popular areas, Blackhead.
You don't see it at Dry Book Ridge, though, when you sign in.
Not at all. Actually, right? there's 3 pages left, but there's only 5 pages total.
Yeah, but and that book is for the past 5 years.
It was. I actually looked.
Rip Van Winkle signed into that book.
No, John Burroughs. Burroughs did.
Well, that's the two were hiking together that day. So
they were. What do you think about that? That's actually not. That's pretty.
It's completely unnecessary for the Catskills. I mean, a place that's more populated, that data would have more meaning. maybe it's useful. But if the DEC had that kind of money to spend on digital registers, there's so many other projects that they could spend that money on. Like it's becoming my new pet peeve, a bridge over the West Branch of the Neversink. I think that's the if I've done this podcast 7 or 8 times now, I've mentioned it on at least 20 episodes. That's how strongly I feel about that.
I agree. You have mentioned that a lot.
Yeah.
You can't afford that simple West Branch. Come on.
Sometimes you can, most times you can, but some places have bridges, and why they don't have one there, particularly when it's such a popular spot with people who are new to the Catskill hiking scene, who may not be as well equipped or experienced doing something like that. They deserve a bridge there. Doesn't have to be a fancy bridge, but I think it's a good spot for a bridge. That's all I have to say about a bridge on the West Branch today.
And one of those bridges too in that area wouldn't require like a high height, because it's the start of the river, so the flooding doesn't go too high. Yeah. So you're right. It's a very easy one. It's I would say more of like the one where it's crossing over the Neversink over down towards Table and Peekamoose. Like it would be a 1-lane one that's lifted a little.
Yeah,
but you're right.
And the Rangers just would back up with their pickup trucks with the wood in it, and they'd have to carry it, 50 feet? It's not like these other places where they've got to go in a quarter of a mile, right? This is just...
That's like 25 feet. That's nothing.
Yeah.
Have you ever been a steward there? No, you haven't.
No. I offered, though, to sign up with you if you want to.
We do. I'm
down for it. Just let you know in advance I'm showing up with a Sharpie signing autographs. Working on my signature.
Nice. Yeah, we'll have to do that. Definitely. We'll talk about that later. 3500 Club has their Trailhead Steward things up. So moving on, Hudson Valley Fjords project. Ted, you want to talk about this one? This is your area, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you pointed this out. I think I actually found this at or about the same time. It's a 7.5 mile improved walkway from along the Hudson River from Beacon to Cold Spring. That's on the eastern side of the Hudson River. And it just sounds like a neat project. They haven't yet completed the full 7.5 miles. The expected completion date is the year 2031. So you have a few years before it's done, hopefully with global warming and the increase of the water heights. It won't be underwater by the time it's completed. but when it is completed, you'll either be able to hike it with your hiking shoes or your water boots, one or the other.
20 years in the making. So let's say that.
Yeah.
It's taken 20 years to think about this. And if you don't know what a fjord is, it is a former spot of a glacier that has carved its path through the area. So the Hudson Valley, we all know, was once a glacier, massive glacier, the Laurentide. I don't know if we all know that, but I do because of Dr. Titus. Awesome guy. Brings it in. But he said, once again, Cold Spring to Beacon, 7.5 miles. The images that goes along with it is pretty neat. It brings it through a bunch of different areas, going along the Hudson River, going in through a bunch of like swampy areas around there. It looks promising, but it looks very expensive. Did you happen to see who would be doing this? Is this the DEC or is this a whole nother?
Yeah. I don't know who's on the point in terms of the planning and construction. I'm sure it's one of these things that you have a whole bunch of agencies, both local, state, county, that are planning, designing it, funding it. But it seems like a worthwhile project, expensive as it may be. It's also in an area of the state that's relatively highly populated. There's not a lot of, there are a lot of recreational opportunities for people down there. Some of them are probably more rugged than your average person in that area would want to experience. I mean, this frankly goes right past Breakneck Ridge, which is a pretty hardy hiking spot. But it's well needed, and one of the things I like about it from the renderings that I've seen is it will be handicap accessible, which I think is important to provide accessible opportunities for everyone to enjoy.
Agreed. And you talk about that, and recently, my mom just turned 70 years old, and I'm thinking about, I want to take her to the places that I've seen lately, and I'm thinking, how the hell do I do that? Wheelchair? I can't push a wheelchair up 6.5 miles, to Balsam Lake or something like that. Yeah, it's an easy trail, but it's one hell of a haul. Stuff like that. But, take her down here to maybe the Fords area where, you have 700-foot tall mountains like Breakneck Ridge and stuff peeking over you. She'll find that fascinating. And
yeah, and there is already some places along the Hudson River, some town and county parks that you can literally drive right up to the edge of the water, and you get some very majestic viewpoints, either to watch the sunrise or just to be on the water, watch the boats go by. There's a lot of barge traffic on the Hudson River, if you didn't know that. So if you like tugboats and barges, you'll see quite a few during the day. Your mother would also be able to do the walkway over the Hudson. Have you ever done that?
I have not.
Yeah, that's definitely worthwhile. It's not your wilderness outdoor experience, but it's still very cool. I will just tell you that on a hot summer day, the deck of the walkway over the Hudson, you could fry an egg on it. So it doesn't seem like a long walk across, but bring something to hydrate with.
I got rock on. Did you see the AI images of this Hudson Valley Fjord? Thing? That was pretty outrageous, like out there.
Yeah.
Like this is Switzerland type stuff.
Yeah. All the people were so well dressed, right?
Yeah, right. You're right, actually.
It's like country club hiking.
So you got to pay to get in, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. So cool. It's a cool project. Let's see. Once again, the big question is who's funding that, because let's get the stuff up here fixed. That's been 60 years out of me. Speaking of that, I'll talk about that later today, about going up to the Dry Brook Ridge. There was a trailhead, like a sign, a junction sign that basically looked like a bunch of peels of yellow on it. And I was just like, well, thank God I got digital maps, so I don't need to try to read this and figure out where I'm going, because it has absolutely no signage on it whatsoever. Mm-hmm. It's just a bunch of peels looking like.
Yeah. There's one along the way that's split in two. Was that the one?
No. This was the German Hollow area, German Hollow and stuff. It showed the mileage was around 0.8 to go all the way over to Balsam Lake Mountains. So I'm guessing it's missing a 5 or a 6 on there. So anybody going along Dry Brook Ridge, please use your digital maps and not or your printed maps or your digital map. Don't go by the signage on there, because there's nothing on there. So so the nature bus, Ulster County Nature Bus. I heard about this. Dian actually brought this up. That's why I thought she was going to join us in this, because she brought this up to me too. So pretty cool little addition to Ulster County area. So the nature bus, free ticket to explore Ulster County natural wonders. So it's a program that is starting April 27th. So it started, about 10 days ago. Community members visit and explore the county's natural treasures and destination favorites like Sandpoint, Ashokan Rail Trail, walkway over the Hudson, and definitely many others. So what's do you have any? What do you think about this, Tad? It's pretty neat.
Yeah, again, it's something that provides accessibility to the outdoors for people, and I'm a proponent of that. I did go to the website, and it raised a couple of questions for me, because one of the things it said was that this program is entirely free, both for transportation and admission to the sites. Well, I know that's not true. I know if I pulled up in my car, I'd have to pay to get into these places. So if you're riding on the bus, maybe you do get in for free. But then the next question for me is it said here that one of the stops is the Sam Point Preserve just down the road from my house. And Sam's Point is by reservation only. And you need to make your reservations early because it's booked on the weekends. So if you're riding it on the bus, does that mean you don't need a reservation? It'd be kind of a bummer to get there, get off the bus, walk over to the ranger station, and they ask for your reservation, and you're like, huh? And then you got to wait 2 hours or whatever it is for the bus to come back, and you spent all day sitting in the parking lot thinking it was free and not knowing you needed a reservation. So I was interested in knowing whether that was actually accurately stated on the website or what is it misinformation?
Well, maybe they like this purchase a certain amount of permits per day.
Yeah, or maybe the whole idea behind it is they're just factoring into the reservation system that these people have access. And maybe part of it is because these people are coming in on a bus, they're not driving in a car, and parking is limited there. And maybe it's the parking that's really the thing that's controlling the amount of people they let in versus the head count. So
yeah, Minnewaska, that has a permit as well. Not a permit, but paid parking, right?
Yes, Minnewaska, it's part of the Empire Pass program. So if you have an Empire Pass, you can get in, or better than that, if you're one of the locals like me, you know where to park and just walk in, and you and you don't need a pass. Hell yeah. And you don't need to deal with the crowds either. You just walk right in the middle of the park.
Yeah, this looks pretty neat. I mean, most of the people probably here wouldn't participate in this because that listen to the show usually have their own means of transportation and want to get away from these places. But
you say that, but one of the things that this bus would provide is you can now go point to point. If you're a solo hiker, you just drop your car off someplace, take the bus to the starting point, and hike back to your car.
Damn. Thinking right there. That's thoughts, right?
Hey, man, when you spend enough time hiking by yourself, you come up with good ways to make it a through hike as opposed to an out and back.
Yeah. So you say there's 3 routes, a river route, a ridge route, and a mountain route. So it looks like the river route has Kingston Point Beach, Sojourner Truth State Park. I don't know how to spell that. Shopek Ridge?
Shawangunk?
No, Schwapenick.
I don't know.
Haup. Walkway of the Hudson, Black Creek, Esopik Meadows Preserve. Those are the river routes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ridge route is Sam's Point, Lippman Park, and Minnewaska State Park. And then the mountain routes are the Shokin Rail Trail and the Catskill Visitor Center. And a bunch of different weird dates with everything, different points. So pretty cool, but it's also kind of scary at the same time because of how much flow we're getting up here. But, it's like weird. It's adapting.
Yeah, well, it's the wave of the future. You can see they've already done this in the Catskills with that trolley system they run out of Tannersville to, reduce the traffic, reduce the demands on parking, facilitate access. I think it's a good program. I plan on using it this summer to do some through hiking in that area.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, let me know when you're doing it. Probably on a Saturday, which I can't do it.
Yeah, or I'm going to strategically plan my day to do it on a Sunday, rip off a guy's Tesla, drive it to one spot and hike through.
It'll drive you to one spot. So just to let you know. Just to let you know. All right. So thank you to the monthly supporters, Darren, Vicky, John, Betsy, Denise, Vanessa, Joseph, Jim C, Michael, David, Chris, and Vanessa. Thank you guys very much for donating the show. Just want to let you know, guys, for the people who have donated like monthly and, of course, hard ciders once in a while, your donations go towards the show, and then it goes to much more. This week, we donated, the podcast donated $250 towards the Catskill Trail Crew. So I am not taking this into my pockets. This is going back and towards the Catskills. It's, benefiting towards the show that pay for expenses of the show. And then everything else is going back and towards the Catskills. So $250 has been donated to the Catskill Mountain Trail crew. So check them out. Doing a lot of stuff over the next few months within the Catskills. So once again, guys, thank you for donating monthly to the show. Also, thank you, Molly from Outdoors Chronicles Photography. Molly from Outdoor Chronicles Photography specializes in adventure elopement and adventure couple photography in the Catskills, Adirondacks, and the White Mountains. She's an officiant for getting married, a licensed guide, and she's also a story maker. Molly just won't give you photos. She'll give you memories that will last forever. Don't hesitate to get a hold of Molly on all platforms. Also, have you ever wanted to learn more about hiking or backpacking, or even just brush up on some of your old skills in the backcountry? Check out Trailbound Project, a hiking and backpacking school located in New Jersey. Scott and Joe from the New Jersey Search and Rescue Team has amazing backgrounds in wilderness first aid, wilderness first responder, and the Mountain Rescue Association, and they're there to teach you old and new skills about hiking and backpacking. They teach anything from first aid, map and compass, and many other skills that could help you and others while on the trail. Check them out on their social media website and all platforms. So, nobody mentioned the podcast. Come on.
Shame on them. I think it's because you undersold our intentions last week. So I'm giving you kudos for making the donation of the money that was donated to the podcast, and you went ahead and benevolently regifted that money, if you will, to good causes. But last weekend we announced that tag us on your Instagram posts. We're going to check out your posts and talk them up on the show, and maybe even invite a few of our fellow hikers on to chat up hiking in the Catskills, what they have planned for this summer, and what is they think that is fun and groovy about hiking in the Cats. So tag the podcast, and we'll check you out.
Yeah, and check out your. I chatted with a guy that did. I don't know if you're on social media like Facebook and stuff like that. Have you heard of the guy Brian Hikes All Day?
Yes.
So did you see that he recently went up slide?
No, I didn't see that.
So this guy went up slide. I'm guessing his name is Brian because it's Brian Hikes All Day. So we had a good chat about that because you and I have both been up that area, correct?
Mm-hmm. So you met up with him on the trail or just on social media? On social media through Instagram, because he was chatting me about it, and I was telling him my thoughts because I saw his Instagram post, and then I was just like, oh, you know your route and stuff like that. So I was just like, well, I did that, at least I think I've done that twice, and then I went around the rim. I told him I went around the rim looking for a plane crash. Rumor has it you went up slide during the actual slide itself. Is that true? With John Burroughs? Yes, yeah. You were the slide. I was. I slid down it. It was crazy. So he chatted with me about that, and then I talked with him about looking, because we went around that area looking for a potential plane crash, and he was super excited. He was just like, hey, let's get together for a plane crash and stuff like that. And the one question he asked me, which I was like, I paused for like at least 20 minutes pondering why, but he goes, how many bodies have you found? And I'm like, the silence. I was like, what do you mean bodies? Like actual bodies in there? He's like, yeah. I'm like, none. I'm like, they've been documented. That's why we've kind of like resurfaced these. I'm like, how many bodies do you think people have found in the past like 60 years with the technology we have? And he's like, oh, I'm like, do you think that like this is unsolved mysteries kind of stuff? Like, I'm like no, no way. But isn't there some truth to the fact that not all bodies were recovered in these plane wrecks? I know the military plane that went down in the drainage between Balsam Cap and Friday, one of the fellows wasn't found. That is a question, of course. Okay. Oh, he might not have been on the plane, or we have looked into that once again, and I think the wording in the report is kind of wrong, is misinterpreted, because
that's the one thing that I said to my friend Joe. I was just like, hey, wait a minute. In this report, it sounds like they are missing one body, but the wording is wrong. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah, he thinks we're gonna find skeletons in there, like along with this, and I'm like,
but when you do double top in the plane wreck there's the shoe.
There's the shoe. That's
kind of weird, isn't it? You're like walking around, you're checking out the wreckage, and then there's this shoe there.
Leather shoe.
Yeah, of all the things for the search and rescue people to leave behind, a shoe. Right?
That's a rough place though. I mean,
yeah, it's a rough place, but still, was it part of his luggage? I don't think he was carrying any luggage with him. It was a day trip, right?
No, it wasn't.
The other thing is, I recently went up to the wreck on Westkill, and that was the family of 4 that was flying up to Vermont to go skiing. And I don't even think they knew the plane had gone down for a few days. But what is strikingly sad is the ski gear is still there. It's kind of like a reminder that you had this family of 4, 2 young children in the plane, probably all excited about flying up to Vermont from, I think, Virginia, where they were coming to go skiing. And, the ski gear is still there at the site of the wreck. So you search out these plane wrecks, and it's kind of like a bittersweet experience. There's the joy of finding it after all that time you spend searching for it. But then on the other hand, people lost their life there, and it's just, epically tragic.
Yeah. And that's, and that's what I think. I give my respect every time I visit these sites, and, I've visited very, very many of these sites, and it's one of those times of when you're just like, damn, like a lot of this all happened before the mid 1980s. So a lot of these people were misinformed. And we have to we got to go a deep dive in more on the crashes with Joe again.
Yeah, well, I understand one of the technological problems is back then their altimeters were run off of barometric pressure, and when these storm systems rolled in and dropped the barometric pressure, the altimeters weren't self-correcting, so the altimeter reading was showing an elevation higher than the plane actually was.
Yep. And that's what it was.
Yeah. And then, of course, you have a number of these folks who were just plainly off course, and they didn't know they were over mountains.
Nice. And, 95% of the time, Joe and I calculated that basically these people just didn't know that the Catskills existed.
Correct.
They were like, oh, the Adirondacks and the Whites. But then there's the wall of Manitou that freaking rises up 2,000 feet straight up from the Hudson Valley.
And I'm just going to follow along the Hudson River. What do I need navigation for?
Yeah. And you're 2 miles off of the Hudson River, and boom, you're hitting the freaking mountains. So
yeah, I thought they said it was a valley.
Yep.
Maybe that's
Catskill High Peak.
Yeah.
Catskill High Peak. And then there's Stopple Point. And then there's so many crazy stuff. So yeah, that was a very interesting conversation. So he wanted to hike with me, and then he declined of hiking with me unless I found bodies in there. Yeah. And I'm
but before we move on, I know you want to move on, but so you're arranging to hike with Brian Hikes All Day, but you've blown me off every time I tried to hook up with you to hike.
Not at all.
No, you have. I'm just absolutely. I'm signing off now. That's it. I'm done. I'm clicking. I'm clicking the button now. I'm out of here. You're on your own, Stosh.
I've never agreed to hike with this guy, this Brian Hikes All Day guy. So I've just told him that
I'm going to subpoena from Facebook your messaging, whatever, and we're going to get to the truth of this. I'm doing a full investigation.
It's fine with me. You'll find nothing. All right. So what are you having to drink, Ted?
I was actually going to go get a brew, but I'm still putting down the home roasted, home ground, home brewed coffee.
Nice. That's good stuff.
And the same old Yeti cup, which I know annoys you because you think it's like this bougie, pompous thing to drink coffee out of a Yeti cup.
Hipster. That's hipster.
It is hipster, but it is recyclable or reusable. So
It is. So 100% kudos to you. So I'm having some water right now. I was having a rum and coke. So, but I gotta sober up for tomorrow so we can, meet up with some 41 and have some fun with them. So,
all right.
Previous hikes, what have you been up to?
Notice the long silence. It's deafening. I didn't hike this weekend. Saturday I did like an epic list of things around the house. Sunday, as I somewhat indicated earlier, I built this sleep platform in the back of my daughter's Subaru. So I was like Family Guy this weekend.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, Sunday was a pretty crappy day in general.
Yeah, it was, but it was fun watching my daughter sit on her chair, occasionally help me as I'm sawing up pieces of wood and, trying not to curse as I'm putting this thing together in the back of her car and hoping she has a fantastic time.
And then she doesn't judge you. It's like, Dad, this doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Like
it's like she's thinking, good thing Dad has a day job.
Yeah, right. And then you're just like, well, then go look at it online because there's probably some crap online for it. Come out of here.
The sad thing is that the supports, I thought to get a good base on them that I would actually screw them into the sidewalls of her tires, but that proved to be a bad idea. Why are you making that face? Why was that stupid? You would have done otherwise. I thought it would work out well with the shock absorbers and everything. No,
it would.
That was dumb on my part. I might be part Polish. I don't know.
Self-filling tires right there.
Yeah, I have to do one of those, the DNA test, the Y23 and whatever. Yeah.
Okay, I guess so. Yeah. Are you sure
right.
you're not
tell us about, I know you hiked. Tell us about the hike.
You sure you don't live in Suffolk County?
Yeah. I just drink. I drink
what it sounds like.
I drink the water.
Which we're going to talk about tonight. So today, which once again, it is the 7th of May, I went up Drybrook Ridge through Margaretville, the Packatacken area. So you kind of tried to educate me on how to say Packatacken. I've already learned how to say this, man. You gotta
kudos to you, buddy.
Dr. Kudish, man. He's definitely a nail biter on what you say. Like he'll correct you instantly. It's hilarious. You're just like, oh, sorry about that, buddy. But I was just like, my original plan was to go up Becker Hollow to Hunter and to just a short, quick hike, push myself to the extreme max. But I was just like, you know what? I'm going to go back to Packatacken and check that out because I haven't been back there in years. And what a geological masterpiece going up from Margaretville is. Mm-hmm. Just the ledges upon ledges. There's like 3 sets of ledges that you go past. Of course, they made it a really cool switchback area where you kind of don't have to go through those ledges, but you kind of want to if you're, like you and me. You're just like, I want to explore these areas. So beautiful spot. I went all the way up to like the intersection of German Hollow and the Packatacken lean-to. Beautiful Packatacken lean-to is absolute phenomenal shape. And
last time I was there, it was overgrown. I mean, it was
really.
Oh yeah, it was pricker bushes, and more pricker bushes right in front of the lean-to, where the view is from the lean-to. Leading up to the lean-to is, you were under the trees, the canopy. There wasn't a lot of undergrowth. It was very nice going up to the lean-to, but once you got there, just you could not walk around the fire pit. It was so overgrown. Yeah.
It looks like it's going to be that way though. Yeah. That's what I took a picture from it and I could see the prickers are freaking.
Yeah. As you approach it, you're developing this expectation of like, wow, this is going to be really good. You see the clearing in front of the lean-to and you're thinking this is, especially when you walk through the forest leading up to it, you have this expectation that this is a great spot, and it is a great spot, but you just can't get up in the middle of the night and like think that you're going to walk past the fire pit to relieve yourself because that would really hurt.
It looked I gotta admit, and this is spring, so when we were talking early spring, and I could see the prickers. So you're right. Somebody's gonna have to go in there. I didn't have my machete with me at the time. I should have, but I had my saw. No, I had to clean this some blowdown down. But I suggest anybody and everybody that wants to have an awesome connection with nature to go up from Margaretville, the Pacatacan area, to check out this day. And it's a pretty good gain going all the way up to German Hollow cross section. It's like 1,400 feet.
Yeah. That whole trail going right up to the Balsam Lake fire tower is a great hike. There's one section that kind of gets a little ho-hum as you go next to private property.
That's a fantastic section. It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's like one side you're like, you're like, am I on private property? Am I not?
Yeah. I'm sure if you walked across the line, these people would shoot you or have you arrested. They seem to be very protective. I guess you should understand, but no, I've hiked that several times, and I've enjoyed it each time. It's part of the what is that? The Huckleberry Loop out there.
Once you get up to like the German Hollow area and you get past the lean-to, it starts to be part of the Huckleberry Loop. You're not quite a part of the Huckleberry Loop when you start from the Pacatacan area in Margaretville.
Correct. Yeah, but there's some great along that. So
yeah, there's a nice viewpoint overlooking the Pacactan Reservoir. Not insane, incredible, but I was just looking to get out and having a good time. And like I said, going up from there, there's just these geological awesome areas of where you see the ledges separated from the other part of the ledges by 30, 40 feet. And you're just like, you're questioning, what is this? I actually, when I went up to the top, I came back down. I'm like, I'm bushwhacking this area so I can check out more of this geological stuff and seeing these layers, and of course the sandstone and stuff. So I dissected part of the trail to check that out, and it was really, really cool. I actually met a person on there. I met a guy who a photographer, and I was just like, there's a human being on this trail, and he's like, no way. He's like, well, I live down across the street. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I'm just like, I didn't think I'd ever see anybody out on the trail on that side.
I've hiked that several times, and I think the last time I hiked that trail, I don't think I saw a soul the whole day. Yeah, it was crazy. But it's a great hike to do in the fall because you get those viewpoints to the west, and it's different. It's one of those areas of the Catskills that's not overused. The trail is in really good shape. Highly recommended.
Yeah, great. And a lot of people talk about Pacatacan, a lot of people wonder about Pacatacan, where it come from and stuff like that. Of course, Pacatacan sounds Indian. It is. It's Native American. And Tad, you sent me these articles a little bit earlier before when I told you I did it. Was an Indian village situated a short distance above the present village of Margaretville. The name Pacatacan has been used a great deal locally. The highest mountain near a village, of course, is Pacatacan in Margaretville. There was a boarding house above Margaretville in Arkville that was named the Pacatacan Lodge. The artist J. Francis Murphy and late Ada Clifford Murphy and his wife also had a home in that area. Golf course was named Pacatacan Golf Course. House near the bridge was named the Pacatacan Country Club. So many people use the Pacatacan, and a lot of people, Pacatacan Bowling Alley, Pacatacan Lodge, Pacatacan Hose Company. It's all over the place with that. And a lot of people look at that and wonder, for the longest time when I was new here, I said, I forgot what I said, Pactacan or something like that, George Tacky or something like that. And I was mispronouncing it, and then of course I met Dr. Kudish, who looked me dead in the eyes and gave me the stare. It said Pacatacan. I'm like, whoa,
yeah,
my bad.
Yeah,
my bad.
Well, that's his backyard, Dry Brook Ridge.
It is. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. He could from his backyard, he could hike right up to I don't know, it's the summit, the Dry Brook Ridge. I'm pretty sure he's right there.
Yeah.
So
when I met him, he described where his house was, not by the street address, but by the elevation on the road. He said he's at 1450. So he's just yeah, right. That's as only he would do. So he's just past German Hollow.
Yeah,
not far from the trailhead there.
Actually, you're right. I probably could have followed one of them streams and gotten down from there to his house.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to his house. It's very amazing. It's very it's very incredible.
The only reason I'm participating in this podcast is to interview Dr. Kudish with you.
Well,
we need to do another episode with him, or 2 or 3 or 4.
Well, we're gonna have to go to his house because he doesn't do Zoom.
Not a problem. I'll do it.
Okay. Rock on. So Catskill news. So 3500 Club has their Trailhead Stewards schedule out. So check them out. You can sign up for any weekend that they have. And I know that Wittenberg, you can sign up and then you can also camp there overnight for free. So you don't have to pay. So check that out. Catskill Trail Crew, they have a new schedule out. They're going to be out this weekend. I know that for the Huckleberry Loop. I believe they're doing the Huckleberry Loop with the Kelly Hollow Lean-To as well. Charlie sent me out something about that. Catskill Mountain Club, Visitor Center, Jolly Rovers Trail Crew has their calendar out. Bramley Mountain Fire Tower definitely has our calendar out as well, so you can book up stuff to volunteer. I suggest anything and everything to volunteer. Tad and I are going to do that sometime. I'm definitely going to volunteer for my 3500 Club Stewards, and then Bradley Mountain definitely going to do that. And Tad, the Catskill Outdoor Expo, I think we might be there. Are you willing to participate?
Yeah, I'm going to get my Fender amp and guitar out, and you and I are going to put on a little rock concert under our. Do we have like an official awning or pop up for the podcast?
I think it's just a table.
Just a table. So we're going to stand on the table and make fools out of ourselves because I don't know how to play the guitar.
It'll attract the most amount of people. Karaoke.
I'm all about the attention.
Oh, dude, that's a great idea, actually.
Yeah.
They didn't say what we can't do.
Yeah. If it wasn't in the fine print, then we're going to get away with it.
All right. So Catskill Outdoor Expo, we will probably be there June 8th down at the Catskill Visitors Center. So stop in if you're going to be there. I believe it's free of charge. So stop in. Check us out. We might be doing a live show. We might not. That might be awkward. We might be just talking to each other really weird about previous hikes. So I'm not sure how that all goes. It was really odd at the 100th episode. I did have people lined up. So this I don't. So
yeah, I'm not sure if the open mic is a good idea or not, but we can hook up with some equipment and we'll just play it by ear and sound really stupid.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which isn't hard for me.
It's not hard for me either.
According to my wife, I just have to open my mouth.
Exactly. What are you, dumb? Yes. Yes. That's the way it always is.
She has a different word for me.
This involves swear words, I'm guessing. Same here.
No. It's more humbling. But
you're lucky. You're a lucky guy.
We'll move on.
Well,
time to move on, Stosh.
Yes. Weather forecast. So this weekend coming up Friday. So when this is released, moderate to light rain all day on Friday. High temperatures, the low 40s, maybe high 30s, with the wind chill dipping down into the lower 30s. So Saturday, cloudy with a little bit of light rain, highs of mid 30s. This is from Balsam Lake, by the way. Forgot to add that. This is from Balsam Lake. I always try to do a different area. So Balsam Lake has a little bit more wind than everybody else as well. Saturday, light rain, cloudy. Sunday, moderate rain all day long, basically with not even maybe like a half an inch of rain falling. But once again, the temperatures are in the mid 30s to low 30s. So once again, that area of precipitation and temperature has the exposure thoughts. So you need to bring your raincoats. You need to bring extra layers. You need to bring layers to maybe change out of if you're wet, because that is the time of the year, even though it's spring and not going into fall, winter, that hypothermia still is a possibility. And that's my biggest fear. I do not want to deal with hypothermia because it screws with you a lot. So definitely, once again, this weekend, a little jumpy, a little weird.
Just don't forget to check the weather forecast that day when you're setting out, because it's subject to change.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
The New York State
Yeah.
freaking subject to change, might go lower, might go freaking 20 degrees higher. Who knows?
And so the real question is, if, for example, the New York City Water Authority was going to engage in a cloud seeding event, would they tell you in advance, or would they just go out? Would they just go out and seed the clouds to cause a rainstorm without giving any advance warning?
I don't care about us upstate.
Yeah, because as we're going to hear later tonight, they do that in the Catskills. They plant rain seeds in the clouds. It's the truth. Stay tuned.
It's the truth. Stay tuned, definitely. So, last set of sponsored. So, is it time for some new gear hiking the Catskills? Say no more. Camp Catskill in Tannersville has all your hiking needs: footwear, socks, moisture wicking shirts, freeze-dried meals, Catskill merchandise, and more. They have all the essentials for your hiking needs. Located in Tannersville and online, check out Camp Catskill. If you want free stickers, stop here. Also, if you're ready to hit the trails, make sure you take the scenic route. Scenic Route Guiding are here to help you with your goals, big or small. Like Marcy or Slide, Low in their sewers, check out Scenic Route Guiding or Gear Rentals on Instagram and Facebook for more information. Also, if you mention the podcast, you can get 10% off. Use the code MOUNTAINLION. Also, check out Another Summit, a nonprofit program that leads outdoor adventures activities for veterans and first responders for free. Activities like walking, the hiking, or even backpacking and paddling trip. Check out anothersummit.org for more information and future dates for events. All right, so let's get on to the guest of the night.
Let's go.
So tonight, Dian Galusha joins us on the show, and she's going to chat with us about the Catskill Aqueduct, something that I've been talking about probably ever since the beginning I started this podcast, because I'm fascinated with the reservoir system, and the aqueduct, the reservoir system, is a huge project that New York City and New York State and the Catskills had that probably overturned everything in the Catskills and made it an even crazier place than it is today. So welcome to the show, Dian.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. I've like I said before, but I've been gone through a lot of contacts to get you here. So I'm just like, yes, about time. Yes. So, Dian, how about a little background about yourself before we start?
Okay. Well, I come from Windsor, which is in Broome County, just the next county over from Delaware, and the next county to the west. My interest in the New York City reservoir system began when I kind of didn't really appreciate that it was the beginning, but my dad had a business that was impacted by the construction of the Cannonsville Reservoir, which was the last reservoir constructed by New York City in their Delaware water system. So, you know, I remember him being really intimidated, I guess is the word, with his he had to appear in court to claim damages for his business by the construction of the reservoir and the loss of customers. He and his brother had a dry cleaning business, which at the time was kind of like the milk business. You know, you picked up dry cleaning and you delivered it the next week after it was cleaned. It's kind of like, you know, the milk business where where milkmen would come and deliver your milk and your cream and such to your doorstep. Kind of, it's sort of hard to imagine today, but in that time, in the 1960s, it was pretty common. So anyway, you know, fast forward, I graduated from Windsor Central School, and I went to journalism school at SUNY Morrisville. And then I became a reporter, photographer, editor. And in 89, I became the editor of the Catskill Mountain News based in Margaretville in Delaware County. And soon after, this was kind of the epicenter for a kind of a major confrontation, shall we say, between New York City and the upstate communities that supplied the water to New York City, and the Department of Environmental Protection, which protected that water. And so, as the editor of the Catskill Mountain News, I was intimately involved with reporting on that issue, and so in the course of that, discovered that there was very little reliable local history, the building of the reservoirs that preceded this 1990s episode. So I decided to investigate it because that history was resonating. It was what was informing the negotiations between the city, the federal government, the state government, the local governments, in trying to protect this water. So, I kind of hearkened back to my childhood and remembered the pain that was caused by the development of the Cannonsville Reservoir, which was really the sixth in a series of reservoirs in the Catskill region, and that pain was multiplied by 6 or beyond. So you couldn't very well talk about or report on what was what was going on in the 1990s without knowing what had happened in the previous 90 years. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I've kind of rambled. I tend to do that.
No.
Anyway, that's kind of how I got to write the book, which is called Liquid Assets, New York, a history of New York City's water system. And, I had started that project on a very small scale. I thought, gosh, I need to know about the Papacton Reservoir, which the tailwaters kind of is like 2 miles from Margaretville. And I thought, what happened in the Papacton Reservoir? Not being from here, I didn't know. And anyway, that I started with the idea that I would just interview people who had lived in the communities in the Papacton Reservoir Basin who were required to move, and other people who had helped build the reservoir, people who were with the New York City DEP, and others who could explain this kind of amazing phenomenon. And but I quickly learned that the Papacton was just one of like 26 reservoirs, and it was just one of many. So one thing led to another, and I ended up writing this book. And it's been a revelation to me and to many other people. I've learned many things since writing the book, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to meet so many people and talk to so many people who are now gone, who were able to share their family stories, the trauma of being displaced, the joy, I guess, and the pride of being those people who had been a part of building it, because it is truly a wonderful and a wondrous project.
Yeah, definitely. We if you look a lot at like you said, a lot of the stuff about the reservoirs is I wouldn't say like faded, but it sort of is. Like it's tough to find a lot of information about it. It's tough to go. You got to connect a lot of dots to find out a certain information about it. And that's what I've done is, I've read a bunch of books, watched a bunch of videos online, and, your book really explains, the hardship of the building of the reservoirs, the importance of building the reservoirs, like the balance. Is there a balance? And that's kind of the big question. Is there a balance to this? Like, is of course, New York City is winning because they're getting the water, but are the Catskills winning as well? Is it both an importance to both places, would you say?
That's an interesting question. Depends on what your perspective is. I was just talking to somebody today, actually, about how we were looking at an aerial photograph of Margaretville looking towards Ulster County. And the community of Margaretville is this intact, lots of buildings and this obvious village. And surrounding it is just endless forests and a river that runs through it. We all kind of looked at it and said, we are so lucky to live here. And I think that, beyond the heartache of being displaced, those many communities that were lost to these reservoirs, they have, in fact, contributed to the quality of life that we now enjoy. The reservoirs, the surrounding New York City lands, the New York State lands that preceded the reservoirs and then built on those city lands, they are protecting us, if you will, from overdevelopment and from I don't know. I guess that I'm lucky to be here. I came after, so I probably have no standing really to say that this is a good thing. But I will say that that there are many people, the people who live here now, are benefiting from the fact that this is all protected land and will not be developed and overdeveloped and industrialized and polluted in any way. There is that, I guess.
No, that's, both, once again, New York City is getting the cleanest water in the world, the greatest water in the world. And the Catskills, of course, are benefiting from, like what you said, people, no overdeveloping, no overuse, misuse, stuff like that. We have misuse sometimes on the trails, but not as much as that should be with how close we are to New York City. But, like you said, there are definitely grounds in place to keep this area protected. The DEC and the DEP are buying new lands every day to make this area protected, make this water protective, and it's a big project. And anybody who's read about the reservoirs and the aqueduct and stuff like that knows that it is it's very important to New York State, let alone New York City. So you kind of skimmed over what made you go after the book to write about the book. What made you really go into writing this book? Like you said, the hardships and stuff like that. Was that like the deep spot that kind of hit you?
Well, I started, I really got interested in the book because I had no source that would explain the history of the hostility and the resentment that was obvious in the 1990s when this agreement between New York City and the upstate communities was being hashed out. For the benefit of those who don't know about that, the federal government was driving this train in which it basically said all surface water supplies needed to be filtered. And the city said, well, hold on, we have more than 1 billion gallons of water a day from the Delaware system alone. And, we can't afford to build a filtration plant to handle that. And it would be an unfair burden on our ratepayers in the city. So so thus began this big negotiation between the federal government and the city and the state and the local governments to determine what was what was the fair middle ground that would allow the city to have clean, palatable water and safe water at a reasonable price while not bankrupting the communities where that water began. So the idea was to protect the water at the source without burdening the people who live here in the watershed with the source of the water with, not requiring the people who live at the water source to pay, to make the water clean for people 120 miles away. So this was a huge thing that went on for several years in the 1990s, and I just needed some kind of historical background. I'm an avocational historian. I'm not a trained or historian with any kind of history degree or anything, but I've always been very interested in history and how it has colored our present and our future. So I just felt like you can't really write this story without knowing what came before. So that's kind of why I wrote the book. Yeah.
So as you started reading and such like that, you started to develop an interest to write the book and be like, wow, this has some crazy facts that a lot of people don't know about. And then boom.
Yeah, sure. And because I lived in Margaretville and the Papacton was my kind of immediate resource, and I knew people who had lived in Arena and Shavertown and Papacton and Union Grove, those communities that had been removed for the Papacton Reservoir. It didn't take long for me to realize that there were many other towns, hamlets that had suffered the same fate over 150 years. So basically, I kind of went backwards, and to the first New York City water system was the Croton system, which was developed along the river, the Croton River and its tributaries in Westchester and Putnam County. And then it went to the Catskill system, which was across the Hudson River, and involved the Ashokan Reservoir and the Schoharie Reservoir. And they also built the Kensico Reservoir as the receiving reservoir for those two upstate reservoirs, and that was in Westchester County. And then they went on to the Delaware system, which was 4 more reservoirs in the Catskills, and they included the Rondout, the Neversink, the Papacton, and the Cannonsville. And so the between the Catskill and the Delaware system reservoirs, that was like, they spanned the era from like 1905 to 1965. So for 60 years, there were New York City reservoirs being built in the Catskills. It was traumatic for many, many communities. It was also a boon to many communities who were not taken, but who benefited from the influx of workers and money and all of that you can imagine would, happen with a huge public works projects like these. So, a lot of people were employed, and, a lot of communities were destroyed and moved. It's just a huge story that has resonance today for sure.
Yeah.
And Diane, if I may, just hitting the reverse button and going back to this agreement in the 1990s, what I think is referred to as the Memorandum of Understanding.
Well, it was the Memorandum of Understanding until it was agreed upon, and then
it was kind of crammed down on the locals because they didn't have the legal wherewithal to push back.
Power.
Called MOA now, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and is one of the concerns or one of the gripes that the locals and the local communities have relative to this agreement is that when the city of New York was essentially mandated by the EPA to go around and buy up land in the Catskills to protect the watershed, to protect the water, to minimize the need for filtration or eliminate the need for filtration, that when the city was buying up this land, it was basically either taking the land off the tax roll or preventing that land from ever being developed with the type of development that would generate a tax rateable that would reduce the tax burden on the local community. Do you understand that?
That's a long question.
Yeah.
Not sure what the question was actually.
Well, I mean, am I correct? Am I correct that, one of the concerns, a year in, year out concern of the local communities in the Catskills is the city of New York is currently going around and buying up lots and lots of land, and that land will never be developed. Therefore, that land won't have its tax value increased. So the tax burden is going to remain on the locals going forward and not so much on the city of New York.
Yeah, that's been a long-standing issue, and I'm not sure how much land the city is currently buying. I think that was pulled back. That I think they are not doing that so much. They got a lot of pushback in recent years from local communities and from the Coalition of Watershed Towns about that. Why are you buying so much land that's not necessarily critical to water quality? That was a big concern. Initially, 20 years ago, or how many ever long years ago it was, the city was buying priority lands that fed into or were located within a 60-day travel time for the water to get to the city. And that was very early on, and then they gradually, that priority area basically expanded over time, and so the standards for what kind of property they could buy shifted somewhat. It went from 10 acres, it had to be at least 10 acres, and then I think it was shrunk over time. I don't know. I've been away from that for a bit now, but that's always been an issue. The city does pay taxes on its land. It is the largest taxpayer in many communities, but you're right in that it buys vacant lands for the most part and restricts, and so those lands will not be developed, with houses or businesses or whatever. So it pays taxes on the undeveloped value of these lands. You're absolutely right about that.
Which is if you're a homeowner up in the Catskills, that over time just continues to increase your tax burden.
I think what also increases the tax burden is the fact that the city and the states and other municipal and nonprofit entities owning lots of land in the Catskills makes the available land, limits the amount of available land to people who want to buy land. So therefore, that limited land is more valuable, and so people who can afford it then buy this land, and there's less and less, land, and so basically that land is more valuable, which means that other people in the Catskills, the tax burden is higher, because they are, they are living next to people who have $1 million properties as opposed to their, $100,000 property. So, it increases the value of their land, which makes their taxes go up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, do you have we have some facts about the aqueduct. Let's get back into the aqueduct a little bit. Do you have any facts that you know about the aqueduct that you can tell to the listeners? It's 92 miles long. We know that, right? Probably longer than that now, right?
Well, 92 miles long.
92 miles long. Let's see. What else is there? 67 shafts of steel siphon, I guess. 67 shafts of sunk for various purposes. Do you know, did you find with all this research, did you find anything like crazy, like the lesser known stuff that people wouldn't find about usually?
Well, I mean, it's all fascinating to me. The Catskill Aqueduct, just to back up a little bit and explain what it is, unless you already did this, I'm not
Nope.
sure.
Go right ahead.
So, so when the city decided, I mean, New York City the population was expanding by leaps and bounds, and then in 1898, it was, the city of Brooklyn was consolidated, and many other outlying areas were consolidated. So New York City was, suddenly had a lot of people on its hands, millions more people on its hands that it was required to supply basic services, including clean water. And so the Croton system, which had been developed from the 1830s really through the 1890s, was no longer really adequate to serve all these millions of people. So they looked to various other sources and finally settled on the Catskills, which was, as you know, well out of the jurisdiction of New York City politically and geographically, and to the west of the Hudson River. But they were able to get the blessing of the New York State Water Commission and other entities, and so the city, I say they, but a lot of very smart people and engineers and such decided or came up with a plan to tap various water systems in the Catskills, which were clean and copious sources of water. But in order to get the water from the Catskill Mountains, 120 miles away, to New York City, I mean, that was like, okay, how do we do this? Well, they figured out that they could build an underground tunnel if they dammed the Esopus Creek in Ulster County and created this 12-mile long reservoir called the Ashokan Reservoir. How would they get that water to the city? They built the Catskill Aqueduct, which starts at the Ashokan Reservoir, and it goes southeast, and it crosses beneath the Hudson River at around West Point, and 1,100 feet beneath the bottom of the Hudson River, and then continues on to a reservoir that was constructed to receive this water, the Kensico Reservoir. Actually, the Kensico was part of the Croton originally, and they enlarged it to allow the Catskill water to come there. And then it went to a reservoir called Hillview, which was built in concert with the Catskill system. That's in Yonkers. That was a kind of a balancing reservoir. So, the amount of water that went to the city was kind of calculated there. And so that's the Catskill Aqueduct, which is a series of, I mean, it wasn't just one underground tunnel. It was a series of siphons of hard rock tunnels under the river. It went through mountains, it went underneath streams. But the key was that it was all the water that went through the Catskill Aqueduct to the city was conveyed by gravity. It did not require pumping. It was a really amazing engineering feat, which was really compared at that time to another amazing engineering feat, which was the Panama Canal, the construction of the Panama Canal, which was being built about the same time. So the Catskill Aqueduct was really kind of the umbilicus for, between the mother Catskills and this, child in the city, all these millions of children who had no clue where their water was coming from. They just took it for granted that it would be there when they opened the tap.
So, Diane, the aqueduct itself is 92 miles long.
Correct.
Do you have any idea how long it takes water to travel that distance of 92 miles?
Well, because it settles for a time in a couple of different locations. It actually can go to the West Branch Reservoir, which is part of the Delaware system now, but in Putnam County, and then it goes to the Kensico, and then it goes to Hillview. I believe the time that they basically calculate that a drop of water that drops, that rain that falls on the Ashokan Reservoir, or maybe the Schoharie Reservoir, which is connected to the Ashokan, but the time it takes to get through the tap, I think, is 2 months. I mean, it'd be hard to kind of, but the Catskill system, it's just very complicated because it's not just the Catskill Aqueduct. The Catskill Aqueduct, just the conveyance, the Ashokan Reservoir is this huge, it's about between the Ashokan and the Schoharie Reservoir that they are connected. I think they provide about 40% of New York City's water. And the Delaware system, which is 4 additional reservoirs, and the Delaware Aqueduct is about 60%, maybe 50 to 60% of New York City's, 50% of New York City's water. 10% is supplied by the Croton system. So the Schoharie Reservoir, the Ashokan Reservoir was finished in around 1915 to 17. And then the Schoharie Reservoir just to the north was constructed, and it was finished around 1925. And it is connected to the Ashokan by the Shandaken Tunnel, which sends the Schoharie. Basically, the Schoharie Reservoir was created by damming the Schoharie Creek, which is a north-flowing creek. It's born in Hunter in the Greene County Catskills, and it flows north to it's basically a tributary of the Mohawk River. So the city basically kind of changed the whole geographic dynamic by damming the Schoharie Creek and then creating this reservoir and then sending that impounded water through a 9-mile tunnel. No, I'm sorry.
I was going to say it's a little bit more than 9. It's got to be
18-mile tunnel. I'm sorry, I just misspoke. So that tunnel carries water from the Schoharie Reservoir under the mountains in a hard rock tunnel. It's basically through bedrock, and it exits into the Esopus Creek in the town of Shandaken in Ulster County. And then the Esopus Creek carries that water to the Ashokan Reservoir. So there's this Shandaken Tunnel, the Esopus Creek, the 2 reservoirs. Those are considered the Catskill system. And then those conjoined waters go down the Catskill Aqueduct that begins at the Ashokan Reservoir and goes down through a couple of counties and under the Hudson River, as I mentioned, and into New York City, into the Kensico and then Hillview Reservoir. So that it's a very complicated system, and I'm not sure where I was going with that, but
no. It's, Tad just asked about how long it takes, but then it's a tough question because you have the Ashokan, you have the Schoharie, then you have the Roundout. So it's a varying question, but.
Well, I have to say the Roundout is not part of the Catskill system.
Okay.
The Roundout. So the quest continues for, as the immigration continued, the city grew and grew and grew, and they continued to need more and more water. The city then, after the completion of the Schoharie Reservoir, which was the completion of the Catskill system, they wanted to tap the Delaware River and its branches and tributaries to construct more reservoirs. So in order to do that, because the Delaware River, to the west of the Esopus and the Schoharie Creek, the Delaware River, the east and west branches of the Delaware River and its main stem are an intra-state waterway. So you can't, they couldn't just decide to dam any one of the branches and then and call it good. They were the city was had to answer to New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Delaware, which also depend on Delaware River water. So the issue went actually to the New York State. The U.S. Supreme Court, which determined in 1931 that the city could tap the interstate water, the Delaware River, as long as it maintained the flow in the main stem of the Delaware River at a particular level. It couldn't just dam it up and say, we're having a drought, we can't let any of this water go. They had to maintain the water level in the Delaware River at Montague, New Jersey, at a certain level. And then that ruling by the Supreme Court was modified again in the 1950s to allow the city to build yet another reservoir in Cannonsville, which was the last that it built. So ultimately, the city built a reservoir on the Rondout Creek, which is not part of the Delaware River. It is part of the Hudson River watershed. The Rondout is a tributary of the Hudson. But it built the Rondout Reservoir as a receiving reservoir for the other three Delaware reservoirs, which is the Papacton on the east branch of the Delaware River, and the Neversink on the Neversink River, which is a tributary of the main stem of the Delaware, and the Papacton, which is and the Cannonsville, which is on the west branch of the Delaware River. So those three reservoirs all have tunnels that feed to the Rondout, and then the Delaware Aqueduct begins at the Rondout Reservoir and is a deep rock tunnel, that the longest continuous tunnel in the world, that takes the water, the conjoined Delaware River, the Delaware system waters, to the West Branch Reservoir in Putnam County, and then on down to the city.
It's very complicated. If you look at maps, it's absolutely like, you're just like, holy crap. How did this happen in the 1900s? Let's just say that. Now, how does the Catskill Aqueduct compare to like similar water system supplies around the world? Can you compare it?
I don't have any idea. Let's cut to the chase there. I don't really know. I
would say that it's not anything like it.
Well, I've read other. I mean, water systems around the world are very different. There's a really interesting documentary as well as a book about what's it called? The water system for, what is it called? Cadillac Desert. I'm drawing a blank here, but water for California, for instance, is drawn from hundreds of miles away. So, in fact, New York City had, it was a good thing that the Catskills existed so close to New York City that even though we look at it as this, amazing feat, if you look at how they deliver water to, San Francisco and Los Angeles, it's it's kind of.
But they have all pumps and stuff like that. Ours is gravity fed. That's amazing.
Well, that's made. Yeah, I mean, really, I think. Yeah, there's a lot of amazing things about the New York City water system, not the least of which is the engineering of it, obviously. But they did look at many, many other ways to get water to New York. And they looked at going to the Adirondacks. They looked at going to the Great Lakes. They looked at tapping other New England, neighboring New England water sources. There were various Hudson River they wanted to tap, but the Hudson River was insanely polluted even then at the turn of the century. The Catskills is really the lifeline for millions of people, whether they know it or not. And they should be grateful for sure.
And so, Diane, one of the things I wonder, you mentioned that the span of the construction, starting with the Ashokan and ending with the round out, was approximately 65 years, more or less. And I'm wondering, what, if any, mistakes the engineers and designers realized that they made in the early construction, the early design, the early plans for this water system, and what changes were made when they constructed the latter components of the system. Are you aware of any?
I can't answer that question. I'm not an engineer, so I can't say. I can't identify mistakes. I will say that they are now, the Delaware system. There were some errors in the construction of the Delaware Aqueduct, in that it traversed apparently an active fault, geological fault, and so there has been a major leak in the Delaware Aqueduct, because the Delaware Aqueduct also crosses beneath the Hudson River, and so there's an active fault. There has been an active fault, which is believed to have created a crack in the concrete.
That's in Roaston?
Yes. And so for many years now, the city has been figuring out and trying to correct that issue, which, has. So what they have done is they have constructed a bypass tunnel under the Hudson River to avoid the leaking portion of the Delaware Aqueduct. And so I don't know. I think there's been some kind of there's been a bit of a delay, and I'm not exactly sure why, but that was supposed to have been connected this year. And I think it's going for another year, but in preparation. So they have to shut down the Delaware Aqueduct while they make the actual connection. They built this, they have to, they're avoiding the leaking portion, but they have to reconnect it, on both sides of the river. So in order to do that, they're going to have to shut down the Delaware Aqueduct for like 6 months, which means the Catskill Aqueduct is going to have to take up the slack, and the Croton system. So this has been a whole, many years worth of calculating how are we going to make those other systems, how are we going to adapt them to be able to carry this additional load. And so the Catskill Aqueduct has been cleaned. There has been this biofilm over the many decades that has formed on the interior of the aqueduct, of this concrete span, which they've now cleaned so that it doesn't it doesn't have the same resistance to the water flow, and so more water can flow through it, and it's more efficient. And they've reduced the number of leaks in the Catskill Aqueduct, et cetera, et cetera. They've done a number of other things, which I can't, because I'm not part of that, the DEP. I can't explain those details. But so you asked about mistakes. I think that might have been a big mistake that maybe they knew about it earlier. And they just figured, well, what the hell, what's a few 100,000, gallons of leaking water a day? The water, I've read that the amount of water that has been leaking from the Delaware Aqueduct is really enough to furnish the city of Rochester every day with water.
Yeah, I've heard it's on the order of tens of millions of gallons a day.
A lot of water, yeah.
Yeah.
And not to be, no, sorry to Tad, but and the Delaware is the most recent one. So that's the newest technology. You'd think we'd be over that stuff already.
Yeah, but it was an additional.
Rushed?
It was an additional. No, I don't think it was rushed. I think it was an additional challenge in that it went through bedrock the entire length. I mean, it wasn't like the Catskill Aqueduct, which surfaces from time to time. I mean, the Catskill Aqueduct is 92 miles, but it was many different sorts of water conveyances. It wasn't just all underground for 92 miles through bedrock, which the Delaware.
Okay.
And so I think there were additional challenges there, but I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't. I can't say what happened there.
Are you at all familiar with what's going on in Warsing?
With what's going on? You're talking about
where the Delaware Aqueduct has been leaking for.
Well, that's what I was just saying. That's what I'm talking about. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and apparently that remediation program is yet to even been started. The construction work and.
No. Actually, the Delaware Aqueduct is almost. I mean, it's that project, that leak repair is virtually finished, except for connecting the underground tunnel. I mean, the connecting the Delaware Aqueduct around the leaking portion. Yeah, no, I mean it's not like they haven't done anything. They've been working for years. There's I don't know exactly what the nature of the delay is, which I would suggest you talk to the DEP about that. Why? Because it was supposed to have been. They last year they came around to all the Delaware municipalities and said, and explained what they were doing, and that because a number of municipalities and institutions get their water from these two primary New York City aqueducts, the Catskill and the Delaware aqueducts. If the aqueducts pass through your town, you can tap into it by law. And I mean, not an individual, of course, but a water district or an institution like a hospital or whatever can tap into it and pay for the water. It's not free. So the city was required to tell all those people along the Delaware Aqueduct that we were going to have to shut down the aqueduct for a period of time. So a number of municipalities had to search for alternative sources. But I have to say that I'm not privy to the current status of that right now.
So what can you tell us about the topic of cloud seeding and droughts in the Catskills?
Well, that happened I mean, to my knowledge, that happened once in 1950. And there was a drought, if you will, or a, there's another word for it, in 1949 and 50, which was pretty worrisome. And so the city was doing things like, there were people who were collecting water on their roofs, and there were, Ebbets Field, they were drilling a well in Ebbets Field, the Dodgers baseball stadium, to come up with water. It was worrisome. And so the city hired a Harvard professor who had this scheme to spread not sodium chloride, but I forget what was
it dry ice?
Yeah, but it's something. I'm trying to think of the scientific term or the chemical term.
Chlorophyll?
No, chloride of some sort. I should. I have the book. A great book written about it, actually. Mr. Howell's Storm, I think it's called. But anyway, so there was an effort to seed the clouds over the Catskills to get it to rain to fill the reservoirs, which at that time included the Ashokan, the Schoharie, and the first two Delaware reservoirs, which were, they weren't even really finished yet. The Neversink and the Rondout. The Pacton didn't get started until wasn't finished till 1954, and Cannonsville till 1965. So this was 1950, and they were, they were doing everything. They were tearing their hair out trying to figure out how to do this, and so they did it. But whether or not the cloud seeding, the jury is still out on whether that actually resulted in the flood that ensued in 1950, but there was a huge flood in the Catskills in 1950, which did a lot of damage and subsequently resulted in many lawsuits by private homeowners and businesses against the city. And there were many, many damage claims, and I think not that many were successful because it's kind of hard to prove that your damage was caused by a plane sending dry ice into the clouds.
So that's what cloud seeding is. I'm not familiar with cloud seeding.
Yeah. Okay,
so it's like you're sending particles into the air to make rain, basically.
Well, you're sending. I wish I knew you were going to ask me that. I would have looked close up.
That was Tad's out of nowhere thing, man. That was good.
Here's the book you should read. Howell's Storm. Storm, in which Dr. Wallace Howell, let's see, what did he do here over the next year?
I wrote that down.
And his to replenish the city's upstate reservoirs in the Catskills, captured New York's cloud seeding and rainmaking efforts would remain the stuff of legend and controversy for decades.
Oh my God, Tad, it looks like Diane. Do you know this guy?
Do I know him?
Who? Yeah, can you get him on the show? This is like a whole conspiracy thing. This is massive.
This guy's long gone by now.
He is no longer with us.
But let's just point out that Mr. Howell, or potentially Dr. Howell, was paid money by the city of New York to hop in an airplane, fly over the Catskills, throw chemicals out of the plane to create drinking water for the city of New York. Okay?
Yeah.
Wow.
Great idea.
I have no clue of that. This opens up on a whole nother book in my chapter. Wow. Amazing. Tad, thank you for bringing that up. And Diane, thank you. That's interesting. Once again, once conspiracy theorists are going to be all over this and be like, oh my God, chemtrails and stuff like that. And that's why we have so much water down there. And
I just wish they would do that in the winter so we could do more snowshoeing.
Right? Yeah, that's the time when we need it. That's when
Yeah,
it needs to melt and get into the reservoirs. Come on.
I think we need to get a grant program going together, some Harvard scientists, an airplane, and do some snow seeding in the Catskills this coming December and January. The skiers aren't going to turn us down. They'll support us.
They'll support us.
Well, good luck with that.
I think we will be successful.
All right. So, Diane, that kind of like concludes everything so far. So Tad's got a little thing at the end called Stump Stosh. And he's going to,
we're going to see how closely Stosh has been listening, Diane. And it's almost like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Wasn't that a show where you can reach out for help and things like that? But we don't let Stosh reach out for help. We'll just have Diane chime in if Stosh is stumped and she knows the answer. Okay, we have 3 questions. The last question is in 2 parts or has 2 components. Okay, question number 1. What is the water pressure inside the Catskill Aqueduct tunnel?
you gotta be kidding me.
Diane, do you know?
You might remember that I did not mention that, and so it's understood that Smash will not know this.
Okay, all right. But if you know it, I just want him to sweat it out. He's sitting there. He knows you know the answer.
I don't know the answer. I'm sorry. I wish I could answer that question, but I don't know.
I can't do it by metrics. Like
okay.
What is it by?
Well, I'll give you what I'll Google. Dr. Google, who's my research assistant, tells us that the pressure in the 14-foot circular tunnel reaches about 15 tons per square foot.
Wow.
15 tons per square foot.
Square foot.
Yeah, that's like 6 or 7 cars per square foot. Isn't that crazy?
Well, it is, and that's exactly why it reaches to the 6th floor of all those buildings in New York City.
Mm-hmm. Crazy.
It was designed at a time when most buildings were 6 stories tall. The tallest building.
And Diane, you're somewhat stealing my thunder. Because the very next question in this week's segment of Stump Stosh is the question is water from the Catskill system distributed to residents in New York City by more than 5,000 water towers holding 10,000 gallons of water or more? Basically, Stosh, are there water towers as part of the distribution system?
There is.
And do you know what they're for?
They're for the high rises and stuff like that, because that's where the water goes and the distribution from the top.
So I don't get it wrong. Let's have Diane explain the role of water towers.
Oh gosh, you guys.
We're trying to make it fun.
I don't understand that. I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. Well, so as you said, Diane, that there's enough pressure in the water distribution system to deliver the water to the 6th floor, but not higher, of buildings in Manhattan and elsewhere in New York City. So it's a longstanding practice to the current day in New York City to have wooden water towers or water tanks on the top of these buildings. Modern buildings in the city have these old-fashioned, if you will, towers that are made out of wood. Many of them hold up to 10,000 gallons, and the water's pumped up into the tower from the street level or below, and the water sits in the tower until it's needed. The water tank works like a bathroom toilet with a float in it, and as the water goes down, the float goes down, triggers the release of water, more water going into it. It's a very interesting thing. Okay, now
it's awesome.
Yes, very interesting, but not the topic of another podcast. The next question, probably the most important question that I've ever asked on this podcast, is why do bagels and pizza made with water from the Catskill and Delaware system taste better?
I can't answer that question because I'm from upstate, so
You've never had a bagel or a slice of pizza from New York City?
I have, but I had slices of pizza from upstate, and it's way better in New York City.
Oh, please. Diane and I are leaving this show right now. This is.
Well, I have to say that, I mean, the standard answer to that is, it's all those wonderful minerals in the Catskills water, and the purity of Catskills water. But I have to say there's a lot of mythology involved with that. That's just my own thinking. So that's why Stosh says, pizza tastes better here than in the city. Well, I don't know. Maybe bagels just taste better in New York because you're in New York when you're eating them.
There's some debate whether they actually taste better or not, and whether it's because of the water or not because of the water. But some people believe and are proponents of the theory that all of the minerals in the water and its transportation through this tunnel mechanism, exposing it to more minerals, actually impacts on how the gluten reacts with the water as the bread is proofing or the bagels are proofing. So
interesting.
But it is true. It is true. There's no debate over the fact that a New York City bagel and a slice of pizza from the city, some of the best, if not the best in the world. And it's certainly better than, where is it again, Stosh, you live?
Oneonta.
Oneonta does. I mean, they probably don't even have any bagels within 10 miles of where you live.
We don't. We have good pizza, though. We got Sal's Pizzeria.
All right, we're going to go to Sal's. We're going to check out his pie and see if it's up to Arthur Avenue standards.
That's not Catskill's birthday.
The next show is coming live from Sal's in Oneonta. It'd be pizza and beers with Stosh and Ted.
And then you have to ask Sal where his water comes from.
Exactly.
Obviously, a wooden water tank at the top of his building.
Maybe.
We don't have 6 stories here up in Oneonta. No way.
It's like a bunch of trailers and a tractor.
No way. We have a city. We're cities. We have a city here. I think we do have an 8-story building here.
Rumor is there's one fellow up there that has a Tesla. Just one man of class and character in the whole community.
I gotta agree. There's probably like a few up here. But anyway, so Diane, thank you for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. Tad, thank you for the stump, Stosh. You really did stump me. This is getting out of control.
It's not hard.
So Diane, when you're visiting throughout the Catskills and stuff like that, do you have any place that you like to stop and like have something to eat, or have, take a good something to drink or something like that you want to suggest?
Business, or you're talking about a place to just enjoy the view?
Either or. I would say a business basically is what it's called, a post-hike Brews and Bites.
I see. So you're looking to promote. To tell you the truth, I don't eat out a lot, but I would say,
You're a person of Margaretville, right?
I live in Margaretville. There's a number of cool places to eat and new places to eat actually in Margaretville, and in just over the hill in Pine Hill and in Phoenicia. I'm not going to name any because I have to say I'm not really much of an out eater.
Okay.
But anyway, this is a beautiful place to live in Margaretville, right on the edge of the Catskill Park, and I hope you'll all come to spend some time in Margaretville. It's a beautiful town.
Definitely. So Diane, once again, thank you for joining us tonight. Once again, check out Diane's writings, Liquid Assets, Another Day, Another Dollar, both about the Catskill Reservoir System. Definitely check her out anywhere you can. It took a long time for me to get a hold of her, but if you need me to get a hold of her, I got her email now, so I can get a hold of her. So check out her writings. Diane, once again, thank you for joining us tonight, and have a good night.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. It's been fun.
Thanks, Diane.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good night.
Good night.
Hey everyone, I just want to thank you for listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe and throw down a smooth review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any podcast platform that you use. You can also check daily updates of the podcast, hikes, hiking news, and local news on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the official website of the show. Remember this: You gotta just keep on living in the Catskills, man. Livin.
Wicked, 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 wicked.